to the Ritz Theater in downtown Sheffield, Alabama. The Ritz Theater was opened here on West 3rd Street as a cinema house on July 9, 1928. It was built by the Crescent Amusement Company out of Nashville, Tennessee, and it was operated in partnership with Muscle Shoals Theaters Incorporated. Sheffield is one of the 4 cities that makes up the Shoals area of northwest Alabama, along with Florence, Tuscumbia, and Muscle Shoals. Muscle Shoals Theaters was created and founded by the local cinema entrepreneur, Louis Rosenbaum. As general manager, he oversaw the Princess and Majestic Theaters in Florence and the Strand in Tuscumbia.
Black or brown and gentlemen prefer blonde. The redheads and the sweet...
The cinema's opening film was Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, written by Anita Luce and starring Ruth Taylor. Luce's sharply witted novel, which originated the story, was published in 1925 and was a wildly popular runaway bestseller the very next year. Unfortunately, the film is considered lost, with only production stills and lobby cards in existence. Although Gentlemen Prefer Blondes epitomizes the highs and lows of the jazz age, it is now most famous for its musical film adaptation in 1953, starring Jane Russell and Marilyn Monroe. During the Progressive Era, the 1890s to the 1920s, segregation of African Americans was legalized through laws passed throughout the South. The 1901 Constitution in Alabama codified its stipulations, while culture and custom dictated the rest. The cinema house was a public space and therefore was segregated by seating and segregated by entry. The ticket box office had this slot here to pass tickets through to black patrons. This alcove leads up to a stairway where the seating in the balcony was separate but certainly not equal. In 1928, admission prices were 50 cents for white audiences and 10 cents for black audiences. In most American silent films, minorities were generally played by white actors in makeup called blackface or burnt cork. Cork was burned with an accelerant such as alcohol, and the resultant ash was applied to the skin. We know that the Ritz screened the jazz singer here, starring Al Jolson as the most well-known blackface character in film history. Another burnt cork film from the same year shown here was Ham and Eggs on the Front, a lesser-known comedy about African Americans in the First World War. Interesting fact, both films starred a young Myrna Loy. Loy would later express regret at her participation in Ham and Eggs, saying, "How could I have ever put on blackface? When I think of it now, it horrifies me." Well, our awareness broadens, thank God. It was a tasteless slapstick comedy that I mercifully recall very little about. Black films for black audiences with black actors and made by black and white filmmakers were termed race movies. And by 1916, the first production companies in America devoted to making them were created. Ebony Film Company in Chicago and the Lincoln Motion Picture Group in Los Angeles. However, the most successful and well-known company was Michaud Book and Film Company, founded in 1919 by Oscar Michaud. Michaud's films were visionary and controversial, and he would helm the production of 44 films during his company's existence. Race films here in North Alabama deserves a much more in-depth look, and we are conducting ongoing research. Please stay tuned, as we will devote an entire episode to the history of the black cinema experience. In the newspaper's announcement on the theater's opening, the article promoted that the Ritz was to be outfitted with 2 of the latest model of film projector and was constructed with the necessary concrete walls and metal doors necessary to mitigate fire threat. The Simplex Projector was introduced in 1909 and set the standard for excellence. In 1928, the Super Simplex model was brought to market, and it's this model that was installed in the Ritz Theater's projection booth. It featured several technological advances, primarily the capability to adjust shutter timing while the machine was running, and a quickly interchangeable intermittent unit that detached completely within 3 minutes. The heavy pedestal ensured a steady and smooth projection and promised audiences the very best cinema viewing experience. Although the first talking feature, The Jazz Singer, was introduced the year before, many cities didn't have the means for audio technology and continued to screen silent films for some time. Not sure if talkies were merely a fad, cinema owners used technological stopgaps like the Vitaphone system, which is an analog record-on-disc system of recording, used in The Jazz Singer, for example. Sound on disc simply means a record played on a turntable. The Movietone system, a sound-on-film method of recording, guaranteed synchronization between sound and picture, and in November of 1928 was announced for all the area theaters, featuring a film of popular vaudeville acts. General Manager Louis Rosenbaum was well known for his ability to bring the best and most popular films to his theaters. A feature film would usually play at the Princess in Florence first, and then make the rounds to the other area theaters. A typical screening would include a feature film, as well as newsreels and animated shorts. Special events were also created, such as Pal Day, where admission was 2 for 1 if you brought a friend. And in what became a tradition for many years, all the area theaters hosted a midnight film and party on New Year's Eve, and also an annual December charity event for families in need, where donated items were brought in lieu of admission price. Beyond the movies, cinema houses also welcomed live acts from touring groups. In September of 1928, the Jack King Players performed musical comedy and vaudeville sketches. In November of the same year, a one-night-only event at the Princess featured the touring ballet troupe of Alexis Kozlov, famed Russian ballet instructor and dance master at the Metropolitan Opera Company. And in October of 1933, the offering was Mitzi Shelton and her all-girl band review, an 11-piece girls' orchestra. This event was sponsored by the studio RKO, who had launched a vaudeville touring circuit to accompany its feature films. The 1930s were shaky for RKO, and they actually found more success financially with live show feature film combinations than with standalone screenings. The cinema house was a multi-purpose cultural touchstone for every American. Regardless, the Ritz Theater closed its doors in 1951. It's possible that it became more difficult to compete with more numerous and bigger theaters in the areas, as well as the new cinema fad, drive-in movies. And don't forget its biggest competitor, television. 1951 was the debut year for both Dragnet and I Love Lucy. This structure was used as a warehouse for 30 years until it was purchased and restored by the Tennessee Valley Art Association in 1983. The TVAA had been established in 1964 to promote the visual arts and theatrical and musical performances in the Tennessee Valley region of Northwest Alabama. In 1980, the TVAA created Center Stage Theater, a performance organization for local actors and musicians. They performed in various venues until increasing attendance prompted the association to purchase and restore the Ritz Theater as a permanent home for Center Stage. The Ritz was restored and reopened by the association in 1985. The opening show in May of that year was Anything Goes, the 1934 musical, which had originally starred Broadway legend Ethel Merman, and with lyrics and music by Cole Porter. Since then, the TVAA has expanded theater programming to include summer stock for young performers ages 16 to 29, time out for theater, educational entertainment for children, and the Ritz School for the Performing Arts. The school was created in 2012 to offer theater arts classes to regional district schools that did not have theater arts programs. That mission still remains, but now it also includes any high school student from the area who is interested in learning acting, dance, or vocal performance. The TVAA also manages the Tennessee Valley Museum of Art, which is right across the road from another popular landmark, Ivy Green, the home of Helen Keller. Thank you for joining us on a brief historical journey of the Ritz Theater. We'll bring more content to you soon, including more of the theater, as well as the Tennessee Valley Museum of Art. For more information on us and our projects, please visit our website at TennesseeValleyArts.org. I'm Stephanie Vickers for the Tennessee Valley Art Association. We love you with all our arts.